Welcome. Time has no meaning.
Okay,
here.
shoot at me.
Will be endless.
Ha! Baited. Hey guys, so this is gonna be probably my highest build I have ever done. Currently sitting somewhere close to 80 million damage, if only just 2 totems proc just once. And yeah, this is kind of OP, but only for one reason, and I'm gonna talk about everything. And this is, by the way, a cheap build. This is somewhere around 5 to 7 divines only, because I'm using like Sire of Shards, and I did not account for like linking Sire of Shards the cost. But the rest of the items are very cheap and very accessible, and I think there are many ways you can actually make it deal a lot more damage. It's just a matter of how you wanna play it. I would say there are like 2 ways of playing it. One is getting taunt for totem, it's super important, and the other one, if you don't have taunt, overload the screen with the amount of the totems that you have by stacking ballistas, like strength stacking or dex stacking. Probably strength stacking would work better with the siege ballistas. They do not have as much life. Now the Flamewood does scale with totem life, and I'm gonna show some numbers. Let's look at the totem life according to PUB. So for example, like siege ballista, shrapnel ballista, all the ballista totems only have at level 20 with no investment, no passives, no anything else, 1478 health only. Okay, so that's pretty low. Breaker totems like spell totems, the same amount, 1478. Ancestral warchief and ancestral protector, holy flame totem, shockwave totem, searing bond, 1774 health only. Then we are jumping a bit higher, rejuvenating totem 3.1k, decoy totem 3.4k, vaal rejuvenating totem 4681, and then suddenly vaal ancestral warchief with almost 11,000 health. It's so far beyond all the other totems in terms of HP, and this is what makes this kind of OP. However, it's a vaal ancestral warchief, so you do need souls, and I built this to recover souls, and using the soul ripper. The soul ripper, you kind of need as few charges as possible, above 40 or a bit more, but not less, because you only need 40 charges to get 2 vaal ancestral warchief uses charges. And this is Scion, Pathfinder plus Chieftain plus Champion. And the reason is because I only have 2 totems, and for clear speed I am only using Ancestral Warchief. I rarely use vaal Ancestral Warchief, it does not seem to be necessary. The taunt is extremely important. Luckily, if you are a Scion, you can buy Forbidden Jewels very cheaply for Chieftain. It will give you 2-second taunt when you summon a totem. And that's what I did. I paid like, actually in the notes, in the Pathfinder building import code in the notes, I listed all the, sort of most of the items prices, and overall it's around 7 divines, plus minor changes like actually getting a rare item with good modifiers. But I also do have a champion, and champion because the champion has 100% chance to taunt, which also works for totems. And I was thinking, if I'm using vaal Ancestral Warchief, it does have like a cascading attack, leap slam, and get closer to enemies, which can sometimes be bad if enemies are slow and they have to chase the totem. But when we do leap slam, we also hit enemies and taunt them. So even if you place the totem and then the new enemies appear, normally it wouldn't be taunted, but with this champions it does get taunted. And I'm not sure if it's actually really needed, because for the most part I am just relying on the Chieftain's taunt, and I tried playing without Chieftain's taunt. It is doable without it, but it's just not pleasant. You would need more totem placement speed, you would probably need a bit more projectile speed, although projectile speed right now is pretty good, and I think projectile speed is very important as well. So as you can see from these numbers, if you just want the most damage like per totem, you go with vaal Ancestral Warchief. And then Pathfinder helps you generate charges, you use Soul Ripper, you also use Dying Sun, because every projectile will overlap and shotgun, unless you have too much AoE. But I am using Conk Effect for bossing. Sire of Shards also work really well because it adds extra 4 projectiles, don't need to use GMP. It's essentially like a 7 link. So the Sire of Shard is very cheap. As you can see, my other items, Utula's Hunger, I really like this body armor because it allows me to stack other uniques that don't have life, like for example Circle of Anguish, and Strength still gives me life. You just have to avoid getting life modifiers. So sadly I could not use the Torch Oak Step Boots, which do give up to 30% totem life, but I think it doesn't really matter. The totem placement speed would have been nice, but I am stacking quite a lot of tattoos with totem live. So I believe I have 13 or 14, yeah, 14 tattoos with totem live. There are couple conditional things for this build, so sometimes the damage isn't like full damage, because I have covered enemies in ash, but I have 2 sources of that, so that's 30%, so that's pretty easy to apply. But I also have a Nerf, only 10% chance on a hit from this, and also a weakened fire penetration, another 10% chance to apply fire exposure. You could get fire exposure on gloves, which would be a bit stronger, but I did want to get a hinder on gloves and the Held of Ash buff effect, and I am using Held of Ash because it does have buff grants up to 13% more spell fire damage right now, and also quality does give increased damage. Imagine totem health and Flamewood as flat damage. So anything that gives you flat damage is pretty much meaningless. It will not give you much damage. So for example, like anger wouldn't give you much damage at all. This is, by the way, also non-crit build. I don't have elemental overload either. I actually heard that elemental overload may not work for this, but I haven't tested, I cannot verify. I do have a resolute technique because I wanted ancestral warchief hits to actually always hit, because otherwise it's an attack and it does have accuracy, and I don't stack accuracy. This build also has pretty much almost 100% spell suppression. It does have pretty decent spell block, 64-60 spell block with the glancing blows. It does have close to 6k life, but I am reserving a bit of life because of clarity. So the tankiness of this build is not great. However, because you are pretty much just taunting enemies while mapping, you are rarely in too much danger. Normally this build does not have any regen. I cannot have recoup on rings, for example. I cannot really have any regen on items. So I actually had to take regen nodes from the passive tree, Surge of Vigor, and that's pretty much it. But you could actually optimize this a bit. Like I said, there are many ways to optimize, and I have like a Balbala keystone, which pretty much doesn't give me anything. There's one node that gives me 20 projectile damage. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You could optimize this and get a lot more damage, and maybe depends on how squishy you allow yourself to be, you can squeeze out a lot more damage, I think. The amulet, by the way, is also very cheap. Replica Dragonfang, it may not be cheap anymore. Plus 3 levels to ancestral warchief gems. Levels do add quite a lot. Look at this. Almost 4.5 million average hit damage per projectile per totem. An extra 1 level would give around 400k per projectile. 400,000 per projectile. So levels do matter, but getting level 21 vaal ancestral warchief is kind of expensive. You don't really need quality. AoE is also pretty important for clear speed. I think for clear speed it actually feels kind of okay. You just kind of move around, you see enemy pack, you just drop it, drop the totem next to it and just move on. This build does have couple strong drawbacks. It cannot do Eater of Walls at all. It just does not trigger Flamewood at all. And I think the reason is because the Eater of Wall casts some kind of spell that triggers a non-direct attacks, like an environmental attacks, and the Flamewood doesn't know who to target, so it doesn't target. So you cannot even deal with the Eater of Walls. There are some other bosses that are like really bad, like Drox, for example. When it goes into his like bubble phase, what do? Just stand and wait. Just pretty much don't do certain fights. Certain fights are just like really bad for this build. I did like Sirius Maven. That was actually the first Maven kill this league for me very easily. I even did Uber Shaper, which I normally don't even go for Ubers, but I did not attempt any other Uber bosses. Bigger bosses like Shaper, for example, or Guardians, they are not immune to taunt. Nothing is immune to taunt. Well, unless it's a map modifier that makes it immune to taunt. But those Guardians and Shaper, for example, are not necessarily going to attack the thing that taunts them. They may still just attack a player instead. So sometimes you have to bait those bosses. You kind of place the totem and then just stand next to the totem and then either take the hit or kind of dodge at the last time, at the last second. So I'm gonna go quickly over my rest of the items, although the Magnate belt that I'm using, this is mainly for the increased flash charges gained, because I wanted to generate flash charges quicker, and I did set Soul Ripper on auto, but I pretty much only use it against big bosses like Shaper, Sirius, yeah, and that's pretty much all. So if you're gonna be doing like general mapping, you don't even need Soul Ripper. Dying Sun, I think you do need. I do have it on auto, and sometimes it was like on cooldown. It's not 100% uptime. Vaal Ancestral Warchief has 16-second soul gain prevention, and it lasts for almost 11 seconds. You're not gonna have 100% uptime on this ever. So I thought I don't really need to worry about having 100% uptime on Soul Ripper either way, because the bosses are dead in just like 2 procs anyway. This is definitely gonna get nerfed. The Vaal Ancestral Warchief HP is definitely gonna get nerfed next league. But then again, I kind of wanted the Flamewood to also get buffed, because its damage with the other totems is kind of not too great. It's okay, but it's not too amazing. By the way, for leveling, I actually used a falling for quite a long time, and I just used the Honor Home Helmet plus 2 socketed gems, including Flamewood and the totem itself, so it raises HP of the totem and then the Flamewood damage also. And that worked really well until I can put on Sire of Shards at level 49, I believe. So yeah, again, items quickly. Sire of Shards, currently it is linked to Vaal Ancestral Warchief, linked to level 5 Awaken Control Distraction, Concentrate effect for the single target, and increased AoE for the clear speed. Diversion Flamewood. I chose Diversion because of the cover enemies in Ash. I wasn't sure if I'm gonna be using Chieftain node for the cover enemies in Ash or not. You can actually even use normal quality. Normal quality is gonna be very close in terms of damage to the other quality that gives totem life, because you're already stacking so much totem life, and you do need increased damage instead. And then Combustion and Awaken Fire Penetration. Utula's Hunger, Flammability, Clarity with Arrogance. Clarity, just try to figure out what level Clarity you need to sustain the mana. Skitterboards for Shock and Chill actually helps quite a bit. Determination, managed to squeeze that in, Held of Ash, Enlighten. But later on, if with a couple more levels, with just 2 more levels, I could drop Enlighten and add Unbound Ailments and take these points, and I would have pretty much the same mana and even more damage. If you check in PUB, how much would that add? That would add around 250,000, 230,000 average damage per projectile. So that would be a couple million extra damage. If you're gonna be going with Utula's Hunger, just avoid getting any life modifiers, including implicits. I think you cannot even get like the boost enchantment for region, because that would also count as a life modifier. It can be on jewels, but not on the equipments. The helmet is also just pretty weak. I just need intelligence, spell suppression. Like when you look at all of my items, they are very simple. It's kind of crazy how much damage it's dealing. And there's like no special source, no any like special other mechanics. You just summon totems, and it just straight up does big damage. As for the tattoos, I did not want to go below 200 strength because I do have 10% chance to deal double damage. But other than totem life tattoos, I'm also using this, which isn't mandatory, but actually I forgot the numbers. It gives something like over 50% damage reduction, or the totems absorb up to 50% of the damage I take. This gets triggered when you even over summon totems, which does count as a totem death. And also I got +1 to levels of all strength skill gems, which does include Vaal Ancestral Warchief. And this costed like 30 years. Now the most expensive part, I guess, is the Reign of Splinters. And actually I can just show it in here. The Reign of Splinters was like just 2 divines straight up. Then the Flask, Soul Ripper, then the like Dying Sun. Brutal Restrain can also be cheap if you want some good. It can be more expensive. Forbidden Jewels were like 30 years at the moment I was buying. Now they're a bit more. Circle rings can also be very cheap depending on what kind of good rolls you want, but they can be replaced with something else. Awakened gems, to my surprise, were also pretty cheap, like 80 years for level 5 Awakened Firepen and Control Destruction. On all the tattoos I spend less than 2 divines, so that's not too much. And the projectile tattoos I'm stacking here, you probably don't need that many really. Previously I even had 15% more projectile speed here, mastery. Now I don't really have a concrete build idea for the next build, so if you got some build ideas, leave them in the comments below. I already did so many builds and I don't want to do what I already did unless it has enough different things. I do want to do a Soul Eater build, but I don't know what what new thing can I do other than just stacking the flash duration tattoos and that's it. But like skill wise and like mechanic wise, I'm not sure. So if you got some interesting build ideas, leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.